Thank you, Madam President. I wish you all a happy Africa Day. I would like to thank the Swiss presidency for this invitation to address the Council on my behalf and on behalf of my organization, Amani Africa Media and Research Services. Amani Africa is a Pan-African policy research, training and consulting think tank that works on multilateral processes on peace and security and democratic and constitutional rule in Africa, with a focus on the role of the African Union and its Peace and Security Council. It's an honor for me to draw on the use of the rich research work of my organization in addressing you today. Madam President, distinguished members of the Council, we would like to propose that at its core, the subject of this session is not about money. Rather, it's first and foremost about the kind of arrangement that can best deliver on the pledge of the UN charters of saving succeeding generations from the scourge of war, at a time when existing arrangements and tools for delivering on this promise have been found wanting. At various junctures in its 78 years, this Security Council had to make bold decisions for adapting the arrangements and tools for the maintenance of international peace and security to the challenges of each era. Although not always successful, there is no doubt that they give the UN the fighting chance for doing better in its efforts towards saving succeeding generations from the scourge of war. Considering the nature of peace and security challenges facing Africa, which account of 60% of the decisions of this Council, it is the moment to make the necessary decision for adopting the arrangement and the tools for the realization of the Charter's most fundamental pledge. This, the Council can achieve by heeding the UN Secretary General's call in the report presented today for the Security Council to signal its clear support for providing AU PSOs with access to the UN-assessed contributions. As discussed in some detail in Amani Africa's Special Research Report, the question of financing of AU PSOs has been an important part of the policy discourse on international peace and security in Africa for nearly 15 years. At the turn of the century, the protocol establishing the PSC was cognizant of the necessity for resort to the use of UN-assessed contributions. This was premised on the fundamental recognition that when the AU deploys peace support operations with UN Security Council Chapter 7 authorization, it does so as part of the arrangement deemed necessary and in pursuit of the global public good for the maintenance of international peace and security. The experiences witnessed in the use of AU PSOs under the Council's authorization have made it clear that the full potential of this arrangement can only be realized if AU PSOs are provided with sustainable, predictable, and flexible funding. The Council has on so many occasions affirmed the imperative of such funding. For such funding, the Council has actually deployed assessed contributions for funding AU PSOs, although in each instance as an exception. Following Resolution 2320 and Resolution 2378, as well as the Presidential Statement of the 13th of August 2022 that requested the preparation of the Secretary General's report presented today, I wish to indicate that the Secretary General is spot on in stating that is an opportune, timely moment for the UN Security Council to rise to the challenge of laying the foundation for a new generation of AU-led, UN-supported peace support operations on the African continent. On whether the institutional and technical work accomplished is good enough for such action, solid enough progress has been made, albeit with some areas requiring further consolidation. There is significant progress with respect to compliance framework for AU peace support operations pursuant to UN Security Council Resolution 2320 and 2378. The AU has also established a unit dedicated to compliance. This can be further strengthened. The implementation of the compliance standards can also be enhanced with further support. With respect to burden sharing, institutionally the most critical development is the revitalization of the AU Peace Fund, dedicated to mobilizing funds from within the continent for financing AU peace and security work. Although the question is framed narrowly in monetary terms, there are questions about giving consideration to the enormous price the AU personnel pay with their lives and limbs, and the resultant financial, social, and other costs that result from such loss to the families, communities, and institutions that this personnel are part of. The use of UN-assessed contributions is the avenue for crafting, along the lines outlined in the SU's report and the AU consensus paper, that arrangement and accompanying combination of tools required for this era to give the UN, working with concert with the African Union, the fighting chance to make meaningful effort towards the promise of the Charter to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war in Africa. The conflicts in various parts of the continent, including those in which the major UN peacekeeping operations are currently engaged, requires the use of combination of peace enforcement, stabilization, and peace-building instruments. Lacking the combination of these tools and the doctrinal space for using some of these tools, UN missions in Dakar, DRC, and Mali have come to face enormous challenges. As the progress made in Somalia under AU's mission there clearly attests, AU PSOs are willing and, when properly resourced, able to use peace enforcement for creating conditions for peace. In similar conflict situations, AU PSOs financed through UNSC contributions can be the necessary alternative to UN peacekeeping. Madam President, at a time when there is apathy to using UN peacekeeping, using AU PSOs offered this Council the avenue for preventing the emergence of such a dangerous vacuum for security arrangements that do not operate on the basis of multilateral principles. The future of multilateralism lies in Africa. The interest of the peoples of the African continent is best served under a multilateral system, even when it's imperfect. As Nkrumah said 60 years ago, although confidence in the UN has suffered several shocks since its foundation, it remains the only world organization in which the many problems of the world have a chance of finding reasonable solution. His endorsement of multilateralism within the framework of the UN is so absolute that he was emphatic that the UN must therefore be supported by all interested in the preservation of peace and progress of human civilization. Madam President, Excellencies, members of the Council, the adoption of the framework resolution on the use of UN-assessed contributions for AU PSOs will contribute materially to restoring Africa's faith in the multilateral system, as forcefully put by Nkrumah, and facilitate the harnessing of the enormous reservoir of support for multilateralism in Africa. Moreover, the use of UN-assessed contributions with agreed institutional arrangement jointly worked out by the AU and the UN offers the best framework for AU's role in the maintenance of international peace and security to be one that meets the expectations of the UN Charter. All indications are AU-led PSOs financed by UN-assessed contributions are cost-effective. There is no doubt this is not about writing a blank check, nor it's a matter of charity. Doing this is rather about this Council crafting the framework for shouldering its part of the responsibility in the shared global public good of maintaining peace and security in Africa. Africa is looking up to this Council. It is our firm belief that this Council will rise to the occasion and muster the will for demonstrating, as the Secretary General puts it, its readiness to address the critical gap in the international peace and security architecture, as well as strong reaffirmation of the willingness of this Council to stem the scourge of armed conflict on the African continent. I thank you for your kind attention.